The Montreal Canadiens start their Western road swing in Salt Lake City as they take on the Mammoth tomorrow night at the Delta Center. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Costa here for PuckTalk Montreal on this November 25th, here to talk about the Canadiens going out west to face the Mammoth tomorrow night. But before we get to all of that, I needed to swing back to last night's episode where I brought up the experiment with Zach Bolduc on the first line. A lot of good banter coming back and forth from everybody. And a lot of you made some great points, and I get it. I'm just impatient because, after all, I'm a hockey coach. I can't wait 10 games to see how things turn out. When I go 3 games and I realize that Bolduc isn't doing what I expect, I want to change. Now, whether that meant putting Slaf back or doing something else, that's a different story. But one thing's for certain. I'm not going to name names, but when you come out and you ask me if I'm stupid or that my headline is stupid, understand one thing. Nothing I say is stupid. Okay? Let's get that straight. But as I say that, there were a couple of good suggestions. All right? Putting Josh Anderson up there was a good one. But the one I was looking for, the one that would really intrigue me, the one that I wanted to see just how much you believe, was to put Florian Jacki on the first line along with Suzuki and Caulfield. Sure, you're going to say it's a little bit of a long shot given the fact that Florian's only played 1 game, but when you talk about bringing a physical presence to a line that absolutely needs it, especially when you're trying to insulate Caulfield and Suzuki, that's the direction I wanted to go in. Nobody brought it up, though. A little disappointed, not very surprised because, after all, like I said, Florian is just 1 game. But keep in mind, we've all been clamoring for Florian to join this team since the preseason ended. We wanted him to stay with the team out of camp, right? That didn't happen. He went down to Laval, played well, and now he's with the big club because of injury. So, take advantage of it. Instead of putting Florian on the third line, which we're going to examine in a minute, I would have put him on a first just to see what his physical presence would mean as far as Suzuki and Caulfield's ability to produce his. I'm not talking about putting him on the power play. I'm talking about simply putting him out there 5-on-5 to give those guys a little bit more room. Now that I've said it, tell me what you think about that and whether the idea of taking Bolduc off and putting somebody else there is stupid. I don't think so. Now, moving along, it's time to take a look at tomorrow night's game versus the Mammoth. Now, the Canadiens, of course, they're coming off their 5-game losing streak, having won 1 versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. But go back a couple of weeks prior to the start of that streak, and the last win they got was a 6-2 victory on Saturday night versus the Mammoth at the Bell Center. The Mammoth, for their part, in their last 3, they've won the last 2, but lost 1 versus the Vegas Golden Knights by a score of, I believe it was 4-1 on Thursday. So, an interesting situation. Lose against the Vegas Golden Knights, win on Saturday versus the Rangers, and then last night they absolutely obliterated the Vegas Golden Knights by a score of 5-1, Logan Cooley getting 4 goals and an assist. So how does that translate to how the game's going to look tomorrow versus Montreal? Well, for that, we got to take a look at the lineups. And when we talk lineups, we talk Instacustoms. Instacustoms.com is Canada's highest-rated print shop with over 3,000 Google reviews and a 4.9-star rating. They offer direct-to-garment printing on all your favorite clothing, along with coffee and travel mugs, and they even offer embroidery. Habs won a Stanley Cup? You can win too on Stanley Street at Instacustoms.com. So now, as far as the Canadiens are concerned, we're going to look at their lineup first because of the fact that they are the visiting team. So when we look at the Canadiens lineup, here is what we've got. Caulfield, Suzuki, and Bolduc on the first. Slafkovsky, Kapanen, and Demidov on the second. Jacki, Evans, and Anderson on the third. And then newcomer Texier playing alongside Veleno and Gallagher on the fourth line. On defense, your pairings remain the same. Matheson with Dobson, Hudson, Struble, Jacki, Carrier, and, as confirmed by Marty St. Louis, Jakub Dobeš getting the start versus the Mammoth. When you take a look at what's in the press box, of course, Jared Davidson getting pulled. He's up in the press box along with Adam Ekström, who just called up from Laval. And then injured, of course, are Kirby Dach, Alex Newhook, Patrick Laine, and Caden Gooley. When it comes to the Utah Mammoth lineup, we've got Keller, Hayton, and Schmaltz on the first line, Genter, Cooley, and Yamamoto on the second, Kroos, McBain, Peterka on the third, Tanev, Stenlund, Carconi on the fourth. Then Sergachev, DeSimone, Schmidt, Marino, Cole, Simashev on defense, Vamilka and Vanacek in goal. It's expected that Vamilka will start once again for the Mammoth. They've got a lot of guys that are injured as well. They've got O'Brien and Mata, along with Kerfoot, Dursey, Valimaki, Goldsmith, and Thornton up in the press box. Now, one of the things that we have to look at when it comes to the Utah lineup is their youth, right? And if you take a look at it, Clayton Keller has always been a dangerous player. Logan Cooley, as I mentioned the other night versus the Vegas Golden Knights, he got 4 goals and an assist. That included, of course, an empty netter, but he got his first hat trick of his career last night. And it was all him. Yamamoto, he can be dangerous as well, as can JJ Peterka. Tanev could be as well. But the one guy who physically dominated the game last night for the Utah Mammoth was Carconi. He hit everything that moved. That led to offensive opportunities and goals. So there's a lot that the Mammoth bring to the table when it comes to their ability to play. But what does that mean as far as the Canadiens are concerned? What can the Canadiens do to mitigate what the Utah Mammoths bring to the table? As I mentioned, just 2 games ago, those same Golden Knights beat the Mammoth handily. So what was the difference between one game and the other? Well, number one, the Golden Knights didn't get very good goaltending. And number two, Logan Cooley just was absolutely on fire. Without Cooley finishing the way he did last night, then what you would be looking at is another Utah loss. But let's take a look at the 5 keys to victory for the Montreal Canadiens. And when we look at keys to victory, we talk cheapesttshirts.ca. Cheapesttshirts.ca has men's, women's, and children's t-shirts, all sizes, hoodies too, with over 1,000 products to choose from. Anything you need for merchandise or the best deals on everyday clothing, cheapesttshirts.ca is your go-to source. Buy today, ship tomorrow, cheapesttshirts.ca. Now, a lot of what I say when it comes to the keys to victory are different, right? Of course. It's sometimes I focus on goaltending, other times I focus on gameplay, and sometimes you hear me repeat things. So I don't want you to think that I'm just spewing stuff out, because in certain cases, repetition is what the Canadiens need. And one of the things I always repeat is the fact that the Canadiens need to control the neutral zone. That in and of itself is paramount versus the Utah Mammoth. The Mammoth love to generate speed in the middle of the ice. Montreal's got to make sure they maintain tight gaps in the middle of the ice, use smart stick positioning, and get support from all the forwards in order to be able to slow down the Utah rush. You know, eliminating clean zone entries is going to be another thing that the Canadiens need to do. And in order to do that, they need to make sure that they clog up the neutral zone and don't allow Utah free flow into the Canadian zone. Because if Utah can attack with speed, they can engage their cycle game. And when they engage their cycle game, they are extremely dangerous. So point number 1, control the neutral zone. Number 2, another thing that I do repeat quite often is the special teams battle. The Canadiens still haven't scored on the power play in a while, and we need to get that power play back on track. Now, the fun part is that seeing Juraj Slavkovsky and the way he's played with Ivan Demidov on the second line really bodes well now that Demidov is back on the first power play unit. That chemistry between those two is going to be great, because on one side, you're going to have the chemistry between Slavkovsky and Demidov, and on the opposite side, you've got Suzuki and Caulfield, while at the point, you've got Lane Hudson. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. But the Canadiens need to make sure they keep the Mammoth off the power play, because they love to create momentum by scoring power play goals. So how do you do that? Well, number 1, you got to stay disciplined, which means stay on the right side of the puck. Keep your feet moving. Keep pace with the opposition. Don't fall behind. Don't hook. Make sure you just maintain your speed. Make sure to pressure Utah's point men. While guys like Sergachev can get the puck through rather easily. Pressuring Sergachev can force him into making mistakes, along with the other defensemen on the Utah Mammoth. So on the power play, pressure the defense. Don't give them time to distribute the puck or shoot it. And then the third thing is avoid extended shifts in the defensive zone when you want to avoid that power play, because the longer you stay in the zone, the more tired you get. The more tired you get, the more likely you are to take a penalty. That's the way you win the special teams game. On the other side of things, for the Montreal Canadiens, outside of Sergachev, there's very little experience on that Utah back end. They're young, they're impressionable, and if you pressure them, they fall into the mistakes that they always make. So the Canadiens need to apply a very strong forecheck in order to draw some penalties from the Utah Mammoth. In doing that, the power play gets more repetition, and the more repetition the power play get, the more likely they are to come out of this funk and start scoring goals again. As I mentioned just a second ago, point number 3 is to make sure you forecheck that D aggressively for the Mammoth. Utah likes to play a 2-1-2 forecheck. It's not your conventional 1-2-1 where you've got one forward going into the zone, 2 guys in support, and then 2 guys behind that line. They send 2, so it's like a full court press in basketball. They send 2 guys in hard on the forecheck to try to separate man from puck in the offensive zone. If you can move that puck quickly and get it back into the Utah zone, pressure their D with a strong forecheck, you're more likely than not, you're going to be able to create scoring chances and create odd man opportunities in the offensive zone. So that type of 2-1-2 forecheck, while if you do it extremely well, you tend to create offensive opportunities. If you don't, and you get beat by the other team, you tend to turn over the puck more often than not, especially below the dots, which creates odd man rushes going back the other way. And we know how good Montreal's transition offense can be if they're given time and space. So that's the point that the Montreal Canadiens need to focus on in order to get an advantage at 5-on-5 versus Utah. Allow the forecheck to come in, move the puck away quickly, and get it up in transition. That way you get odd man rushes going back the other way. I mentioned Logan Cooley getting 4 goals the other night. You got to make sure that you shut down that top line. There's no way to win against the Utah Mammoth as the top line gets going. Okay? So you need to make sure you shut down Cooley's line and keep them cold all night long. What's that going to take? Well, whether it's putting your best line against theirs or employing a shutdown line by taking Jake Evans and putting him out there against that Cooley line. Maybe that's the way to do it. Who knows? But at the end of the day, if you can mitigate what the Utah Mammoth's first line can do, you're going to have success. And the other thing, and this is the wild card, this is how the Golden Knights won last Thursday and lost last night, is that they didn't get traffic in front of the Utah goaltender. Karel Vejmelka last night versus the Golden Knights was outstanding, and that allowed the Utah Mammoth to open up the game and be able to take full advantage against the Golden Knights. Vejmelka performs extremely well when he could see the puck, and his lateral movement is beyond reproach. So the way the Canadiens can win this hockey game is the same way they did versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. You get a lot of shots on goal, crash the net, shoot from high danger areas, use the slot. Don't look for that extra pass. The minute you get into the slot, let it rip. Allow your wingers to come in and crash the net. And look for deflections and second chance opportunities. If there's one part of Vejmelka's game that's obvious, is that he's extremely good down low. So the Canadiens can take advantage of that and force him to generate rebounds by shooting far side. If you shoot short side, the goaltender has a relatively easy time being able to move rebounds towards the near side corner, right? But if you fire towards the far side and you've got a guy coming in on the back door for a rebound, that rebound can end up on his stick and in the back of the net faster than you could say boo. So take advantage of the fact that Vejmelka gives up a lot of rebounds, okay? There's no necessity to shoot up high on Vejmelka, and Vejmelka is a right-handed catching goaltender. So remember that in tomorrow's hockey game. Shoot to the opposite side. Quell your instincts and don't shoot towards the same side you normally do on a conventional goaltender. And for the love of God, move that guy east-west, because when he moves laterally, he tends to open up and allow space through the 5-hole as well. So there's a lot that you can take advantage of on Vejmelka. But it starts with taking away his eyes and crashing the net. If you do that, you're going to be able to have success. And it's a habit I want the Montreal Canadiens to start, because we've seen them have success when they do it. When they get away from shooting the puck often and crashing the net and trying to get rebounds, when they try to be too fine with their shots and their passing plays, they tend to lose track of the end goal, which is winning the hockey game. You're not going to win against a team like the Vegas Golden Knights by getting 23 and 24 shots. Vejmelka won't allow that. You need to pepper him. You need to tire him out. Move him laterally. Make him go side to side. Clap a couple of one-timers on him. Force him to make saves. Tire him out. And you're going to have success. And guys like Gallagher, guys like Safkowski, Jack-Eye, they're going to be extremely important in this hockey game, because those are the guys that can get to the front of the net, that can wreak havoc, that can cause all kinds of craziness for the goaltender. And in doing that, they can also draw penalties, because defenders are going to try to move him. And when they try to move him, more often than not, you tend to draw a penalty here and there. So it's important. So let's review those 5 keys to victory for the Canadiens. Make sure you control the neutral zone. Win the special teams battle, forecheck aggressively on the Utah defense, contain Utah's top line, and make sure you get traffic in front of the Utah goaltender, Karel Vejmelka. Those are your 5 keys. But then let's go back to looking at the Montreal Canadiens for a second. Alexandre Texier is going to make his first appearance with the Canadiens. It's going to be interesting to see how he does. He's got slick hands, good offensive talent, and how that translates on a line with Veleno is going to be kind of interesting. From a fourth line, you normally expect energy. That's what Utah's fourth line brings to the table with guys like Stenlund and Carconi. But when it comes to the Canadiens' fourth line, it's built more on being able to generate a little bit of offense while wreaking havoc, especially with a guy like Brendan Gallagher on that fourth line. So why not see what Texier can do on that line? And then by the same token, they've got Anderson on the right wing with Florian Jack-Eye on the third line, centered by Jake Evans. That line's going to be extremely interesting to me, because they were good last game. I don't see them not being good this game. And as I mentioned, let's keep an eye on Bolduc. He's got to start producing here. Notoriously, Bolduc's been a streaky player throughout his career, whether it's at the NHL or the junior level. And he started the season with a pretty heavy streak, scoring 5 goals, and then he cooled off. He's got to get hot again. The Canadiens need that scoring from him, because the minute he starts scoring and draws attention away from Suzuki and Caulfield, maybe then I won't be looking for somebody else to replace him on that first line. But if he doesn't do that, then his function on that first line diminishes. Because as I mentioned in yesterday's episode, I want to see some physicality and somebody who can open up space for the top 2 forwards on the Montreal Canadiens. If they don't have space and they're manhandled in the offensive zone, they're not going to be able to produce. And if they can't produce, that puts the Canadiens at a deficit, a big one. Everybody complains about how small this team is. Well, you have an opportunity here to take a guy who's good size and put somebody on there who's a little bit bigger, still has good mitts so he can get out there and score some goals if he has to, but at the same time, he can make people pay on the forecheck. That's something that Bolduc needs to learn if he's going to play with Caulfield and Suzuki. So there you have it. That's tomorrow night's preview. As I close this show out, let's keep in mind that tomorrow night's game starts at 9:30 at night. So the post game is going to be probably the next morning, given the fact that I'm probably going to be a little tired myself. But it's also going to be American Thanksgiving. So we got a little bit of time, right? Because everybody's got the day off. Enjoy it, everybody. And so we'll talk tomorrow night after the Utah Canadiens game. Thanks again to our sponsors, InstaCustoms.com and CheapestT-shirts.ca. And keep an eye out, because the next edition of The Art of the Save will be coming soon, where I focus on rebounds. And the other thing, too, I'm going to focus on is what's called the VH and the RVH. I'll explain when I get there. Have a good night. We'll see you after tomorrow night's game.